Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this Job Accommodation Network webcast titled Finding the Right Fit, Choosing Assistive Technology for Vision and Hearing Needs in the Workplace. My name is Lisa. I will moderate today's webcast. My JAN colleague, Teresa, is our primary JAN speaker today. Welcome, Teresa, and thank you for putting this on today. This training is going to offer practical guidance on selecting assistive technology, or AT, to accommodate employees with vision and hearing needs. Today's session will walk participants through a step-by-step accommodation process, highlighting key considerations when evaluating and choosing AT solutions that align with the individual's needs and their job tasks. Next up is a quick overview of the JAN service for those who might not know much about us yet. So if you're not familiar with the JAN service, if you're seeking accommodation information, all you need to remember is Ask JAN. We can help. For over 40 years, JAN has provided free, expert, and confidential guidance on workplace accommodations. JAN has helped employers recognize the valuable contributions that qualified workers that happen to have disabilities add to the workforce. We do this by providing technical assistance on the accommodation process, which is that collaborative conversation that leads to successful accommodations. And we provide trusted technical assistance on Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. We also provide information on Section 501 of the Rehabilitation Act and related laws. Technical assistance provided by JAN, it is not legal advice, and our information is based on enforcement guidance provided directly from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC. We are based at West Virginia University here in Morgantown, West Virginia. We are staffed by a small team. There's about 15 of us consultants. JAN is committed to increasing the employment opportunities for people with disabilities through effective, tailored accommodation solutions. The Job Accommodation Network is a direct assistance service of the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or ODEP, and we've been helping employers and workers since 1983. Accessing the JAN service is simple and convenient. Reach us toll-free by phone, live chat at askjan.org, or email. All of our contact information is going to be at the conclusion of this training today. You can also simply go to askjan.org. In October 2025, we do celebrate the 80th anniversary of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, or NDEAM. NDEAM is the annual recognition of the positive impact of people with disabilities in the American workforce. This yearly event began in 1945 as a week-long national observance of the contributions of people with physical disabilities. But in 1988, Congress designated the commemoration of NDEAM, which then evolved to acknowledge the importance of increasing opportunities for people with disabilities, which then include those with mental health conditions and other non-obvious disabilities. In 2001, the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, or ODEP, was created and then entrusted to administer NDEAM, including the selection and promotion of its annual theme. NDEAM 2025 recognizes the value and talent American workers with disabilities add to the workplace and the economy, and it highlights their achievement both past and present. That's the spirit behind this year's official theme, celebrating value and talent. The annual NDEAM poster is available for download on ODEP's website, dol.gov/NDEAM, and a Google search for NDEAM quickly pulls up this page. The poster is rectangular in shape with a dark blue background with an array of red, white, and blue fireworks of different sizes. 5 of these fireworks are framed pictures of people with different disabilities working in various environments. Below the images are the words celebrating value and talent, National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Across the bottom is a logo that says America 250, the DOL seal, followed by the words Office of Disability Employment Policy, United States Department of Labor. And then the hashtag NDEAM on top of the words 80th anniversary and their website address, dol.gov/ODEP. Teresa, I now turn it over to you to get us started with the content.
Thank you, Lisa, for that great introduction and for telling us all about NDEAM and their theme this year. I'm so excited for NDEAM this year, and I want to celebrate that by talking to you about assistive technology, my personal favorite disability-related topic. Now, what do we mean when we say AT? Let's start by kind of setting an expectation and defining what we mean by that when we're talking today. And by the way, today we're going to be using the terms AT, which is short for assistive technology, and the term assistive technology kind of interchangeably. So thank you, Lisa. Assistive technology means different things to different people. There's actually a little bit of debate in the community of people with disabilities and those of us who are assistive technology service providers as to what exactly it means. So I'm going to tell you the definition that we use here at the Job Accommodation Network, or JAN. To us, assistive technology, or AT, can mean any sort of device or service that helps a person with a disability achieve or maintain functioning. So some people prefer to limit that term to only mean things that are designed to help people with more pronounced or severe needs. But here at JAN, we feel that AT can also be simple. And even ubiquitous things could be used as assistive technology if they're used uh, in the service of that goal of achieving or maintaining functioning. It all kind of depends on how it's used and what it does for the person. So specialized equipment, like we see on this screen, uh, could be assistive technology, but other things could too. So assistive technology can also be divided into some categories. So some typical ways of thinking of this are high-tech assistive technology and low-tech assistive technology. So when we think of AT, we might think of, oh, high-tech, futuristic things, rather than just simple modifications. So on this slide, we have a picture of a meeting where three people are communicating with a coworker through a robotic telepresence device, which is a newer technology that could potentially be useful for someone who works remotely while still needing some sort of physical presence on site. So where are we seeing this used primarily? Primarily, currently we're seeing it in healthcare and sometimes in education. Other high-tech options could include alternate input devices, which could mean a different way of using your mouse functions and keyboarding functions on your computer. It could be a literal different kind of keyboard or mouse, or it could be software that substitutes for those things. It could also be something like an AAC device, also known as a speech generating device, which is used by someone who has communication needs. But AT can also be low tech, and it can be implemented fairly easily. Some workplace modifications can be made at little to no cost. And there are all kinds of inexpensive devices, such as the pencil gripping aid that's pictured on this slide. An AT might also be custom designed or a modified product. And this customization doesn't always translate into high cost. Something as simple as removing the legs of a computer desk could be a very low cost custom modification for an individual of short stature, for example. So there are lots of ways to modify things that may not necessarily cost a lot. The trick is figuring out exactly what you need to do. So let's take a look at the next slide. Figuring out what to do, as I say, is the tough part when implementing assistive technology solutions or just when looking for them. So here are some places where you can find some help. First of all, you can look on JAN's website. On the A to Z portion of our website, we do have a page on assistive technology, and you can find links to some of these other resources on that page. State vocational rehabilitation, or VR agencies, provide services to ensure gainful employment for people with disabilities. In addition to job placement, services may include, but are not limited to, counseling, vocational evaluation, assessment, on-the-job training, rehabilitation technology services, and possibly assistance with the funding of accommodations, depending on the situation. Another wonderful resource that I hope you'll look up after the end of this webcast are your state assistive technology projects. Sometimes these are called state AT projects. These places provide technical assistance on AT. That can include consultation, product demonstrations, equipment borrowing, and also low interest loans for individuals with disabilities who might need to make a purchase. When I say equipment borrowing, a lot of them do have a kind of library of things, pieces of assistive technology that they can lend out to you. And you can pick those up at their centers, or in some cases, you can have them shipped to you and try them out on site. So if you have an idea of what might work, but you're just not totally sure that it's suitable in your setting, you may be able to borrow either the device you have in mind or something similar to try right in the workplace and see if it works for the person you're assisting. Another resource is RESNA, also known as the Rehabilitation Engineering and Assistive Technology Society of North America, which provides information on assistive technology uh, and also provides credentials and training for assistive technology practitioners and rehabilitation engineering technologists. Another resource is the Kiat Community, a grassroots organization that includes hundreds of individuals who provide input into the ongoing process of identifying, disseminating, and implementing a set of widely applicable quality indicators for assistive technology services, primarily in school settings. So this could be a good tool to support school districts as they're trying to develop and provide high quality assistive technology service programs. They can be helpful to consumers of assistive technology services, to universities and professional developers, and also policymakers. Their goal is to make sure that assistive technology services are being provided in an effective manner. Moving on. I want to highlight an organization that Jan has become aware of that could be helpful in your search for AT options. Uh, Today, we are spotlighting Makers Making Change. Makers Making Change is a program that provides resources for people who would like to make assistive technology. So, what do I mean by that? Well, they provide um, information on how to use 3D printing and also wiring to create devices that people may need. Pieces of assistive technology. It could be something very, very simple, like a pencil grip, or something to insert the top part of a house key into to make it easier to turn. It could be something more complex. When I met them at CSUN, they showed me a sit puff switch that they had made and described to me how it was, designed and put together. So they have the ability to make a broad range of items, and they provide resources for those who want to make those, primarily for people who want to do 3D printing to make assistive technology. So they can help you make something for yourself. You can also request a volunteer to assist you in making something. They have chapters throughout Canada and the US, and they also do design challenges to help promote innovation. So, if you are interested in learning more about the making of assistive technology, they might be a great resource for you. Or if you figure out you need something but you're not quite sure where to get it, or what you're finding isn't quite right, you need something modified in terms of design, good resource. So next, I want to pull this all together and plug it into something that you might be a little more familiar with, Jan's accommodation process. So I hope a lot of our listeners today are familiar with Jan's six-step accommodation process. What are the six steps? Recognize the accommodation request, begin the accommodation process, request some information, explore and choose accommodations, implement accommodations, and monitor accommodations. Those are the steps that you're probably familiar with. Today, we're going to discuss how to incorporate an additional aspect, a sort of subroutine, if you will, to help facilitate the selection and implementation of assistive technology for use in the workplace. So, assistive technology might be the only or the primary accommodation, or you might combine it, as we'll see on the next slide, with one or more approaches to achieve an effective accommodation. So the goal is always to achieve an effective accommodation that's going to let the person whom you're assisting perform the essential functions of their job and have equal access to all the benefits and privileges of employment. Also, to have equal access to the application process if they happen to be an applicant. So, what are some other types of accommodations that might go along with assistive technology? Well, we might need to make an existing facility accessible. A lot of us think of ramps when we think of this, but it could be other things too, like making sure that the lighting is safe for someone who is photosensitive, that there's a safe path of travel for them. It could include things like making sure that your conference room is accessible to those who are hard of hearing and might use a hearing aid. Making an existing facility accessible could include a broad range of things, with the goal being making sure everybody gets the same benefit of being able to access the facility and the spaces that are in it. Job restructuring, that's another ADA term that you might already be familiar with. This, of course, is when we take something that's not a central part of the job, that's a marginal job function, and maybe reallocate that to someone else or trade it with someone else in exchange for something that's easier for the person to do. Flexible work schedules can be very valuable, especially to those with vision impairment who have difficulty commuting at certain times of day. Modifying policies is something we're going to talk about a bit farther on in the presentation when we talk about Bluetooth devices and how in some settings their use might be restricted. Acquiring or modifying equipment, that's basically taking us back to what we call AT land, because you might buy or modify some assistive technology. Telework, of course, is working from another location. These days, we are seeing people who are returning to the physical workplace, some of them on a hybrid basis, some of them full-time, and there are various supports that they might need to do that successfully. Sometimes a person who's teleworking might also need assistive technology to function in the home environment. That's a thing that happens. And also access for a service animal or a support animal. That could also be a form of accommodation. So again, we're going to talk primarily about assistive technology today, but just I want you to keep in your mind that you might be combining approaches to get to an effective solution. All right, so now we're going to get into the meat of the presentation and talk about this process of choosing assistive technology specifically as a job or a workplace accommodation. So this language is going to look a little bit similar to the language in the accommodation process. We have here define the situation, explore available AT options, choose AT, implement AT, and monitor AT. Let's stop and talk about these a little bit. Assistive technology encompasses like a broad range of tools and devices and related services designed to support someone with a disability in overcoming barriers and performing essential job tasks. So in the workplace, AT can be a key component of effective job accommodations, helping to ensure that all employees have the tools they need to perform their job functions effectively and do their best work. So to do that well, selecting the right assistive technology requires a thoughtful, individualized approach to make sure that it aligns with the employee's specific needs and the essential functions of their role. So these steps are designed to provide a structured process for choosing assistive technology solutions as part of a job accommodation. So on the next slide, we're going to look a little bit more deeply into defining the situation and what we mean by that. So the first step to choosing AT to accommodate an individual with a disability is to define the situation. An effective way to do this is to determine what job functions need to be accommodated by evaluating the individual's work site, their workstation, and their work activities. And here are some questions to help assist with defining the situation. What are the individual's functional limitations? A functional limitation involves difficulty performing one or more specific work activities. So that could be difficulty communicating during meetings, using a telephone, reading material from print, lifting boxes, using a keyboard. Remember, we're thinking broadly here. We're going to zero in on vision and hearing farther down the line. But just in general, a functional limitation is the difficulty in performing one or more specific work activities. So you want to know what the functional limitation is that you're dealing with. What is the extent and the type of impairment? So one thing that can be really helpful to know is whether a condition is progressive or stable. Now, do you absolutely need to know that in every case? No, not necessarily, but it's a good factor to consider when you're thinking about what you'll implement, because do you need something that can change as the person's condition changes? Or is their condition likely the same as it's going to be a year, 2, 5 down the road? So do you want something that suits their needs right now, but won't necessarily be able to grow with them, if you will? So if you know for sure that the person's condition is likely to improve or has the possibility of worsening over a period of time, that could be an important factor in what you're going to choose. So what do I mean? Just to give you a more concrete example, let's say someone has a progressive vision loss. And right now, it helps to make things on their computer screen bigger. In other words, screen magnification is helpful to them now. But their condition is one that's known to progress over time. So it's likely that their vision is going to change and they're going to get to a point where making things bigger isn't going to be enough. They might need screen reading software in the future as their condition continues to progress. So in some cases, when you're thinking ahead, you might want to consider purchasing a software program that combines screen magnification with screen reading, which means reading things on the screen out loud to you, and to go ahead and get that now and get the person learning to use it effectively, rather than having to make them switch to a totally different program down the road when there's an inevitable progression. Now, to get to the last point on this slide, what job tasks are difficult to perform due to the impairment? So this can be a good time to take a look at the person's job description and figure out which of those functions are essential functions and which are marginal functions of the position. So some examples might include distinguishing color, entering data, things like this. If we're leaving the land of sensory disabilities, it could include things like lifting materials or tolerating slides, or sorry, tolerating stress. So when I first started at JAN, I learned a lot from another consultant named Eddie Whidden. And one of the first things he would ask on every call is, well, what is the person having trouble doing? And that's essentially what we're getting at here. What are they needing to do at work that's difficult to do? Now let's move on to the next step, exploring available AT options. Once the situation has been defined, the next step is to explore available AT options. A good starting point is consulting with the individual who needs the accommodation. Often the person is going to know what AT is available if they've been living with their condition for some time. It's not always the case, but it's often the case that they have some idea of what types of technology are out there, and they may also have had some experiences with different types. Talking with the individual can help to determine whether they're proficient in using a certain type of AT, and that can save on research and training time. So, what do we mean by that in terms of, say, a vision accommodation? Well, let's say that um, your organization customarily provides um, a product called JAWS as a screen reader, maybe because that's what the employer's familiar with. But the person has been using a different screen reader. So just as an example, perhaps they've been using a product from NVDA for a long time and are very proficient in it. Would it make sense to switch them to what's usually used in your organization, or would it make more sense to keep them with the product that they're most familiar with? There's no right or wrong answer here, but it's just a point to consider. So, one way to explore available AT options, besides talking to the individual with a disability or perhaps getting some input from their medical team, is to contact JAN directly and connect with an AT specialist, or you could access our website, especially the JAN A to C of Disabilities and Accommodations section, and explore various accommodation options for people with disabilities in work settings. And again, some other resources that can be helpful are those state vocational rehabilitation or VR agencies, the state AT projects, and RESNA, as we discussed on the previous slides. Now I want to talk about the next step, actually choosing the assistive technology. So once you've completed steps 1 and 2, an informed choice can be made about the available AT options. To ensure successful and sustainable implementation, it's really important to thoughtfully evaluate AT options based on a range of both practical and technical considerations. So when you're choosing your assistive technology, here are some things to consider. Is technical support available? Access to reliable technical support is essential for ensuring that the technology continues to function effectively over time. So you would want to consider whether the manufacturer or the vendor offers a good responsive customer service, what type of training or onboarding support is included for the employee and or for the IT staff, because they're likely going to need to be familiar with your technology, especially if it integrates with the phone or the computer system that you're using. And it's also helpful to know something about the availability of troubleshooting resources such as manuals, tutorials, or help desks. Some of the larger technology companies have extensive websites about the accessibility features of their products and also places that you can contact for help. Likewise, it's often possible to contact the hearing aid company for assistance learning how their device connects to other things that the person might need to listen to at work. So know your options. Is there a money-back guarantee and warranty? Investing in AT often involves specialized equipment, so it's important to understand the return and the warranty policies. Does the vendor offer a trial period or a satisfaction guarantee? What does the warranty cover? How long does it last? Are replacement parts or repairs included under the warranty? And is there an option to upgrade with newer versions? Technology evolves really quickly. Staying current can improve functionality and compatibility. And again, just to reiterate, going to your state AT project can be a great way to try something in your setting to see if it's suitable before you make this final decision to choose your assistive technology. You also want to know, does the vendor offer regular software updates or hardware upgrades? Are you going to have to update firmware? Are there costs associated with upgrading, or is it included in a service plan? And will older versions continue to be supported as newer ones are released? Moving on, another important point to consider is the product compatible with other technology being used? Seamless integration is key. Is the AT compatible with the organization's operating systems, applications, and hardware? Can it interface with existing tools? Maybe the person is using a screen reader and you want to add something to their setup. Will those two pieces of software be able to work together effectively? Will the person be able to use their ergonomic equipment if they have an ergonomic mouse or keyboard? Is this going to require specialized setup or ongoing maintenance from the IT staff? So by continuing these factors, or sorry, by considering these factors, employees and employers can make a well-informed decision. And that's what you want, because a well-informed decision leads to effective, durable, and empowering assistive technology solutions. So we're going to talk about step 4, implementing now. Once you've picked a potential AT solution, the next step, of course, is going to be to implement that solution, actually put it in place. And this is actually one of my favorite parts of both the accommodation process and the AT process, because it's when you really, really get into putting a solution together for someone. So satisfying. This step ensures that the chosen technology is not only acquired, but also integrated effectively into the employee's work environment. A successful implementation is more than just a purchase. It requires planning, collaboration, and ongoing support to make sure that the employee can fully benefit from the AT. So consider the following key factors. How will this AT be funded? Identifying and securing funding is essential to avoid delays in implementation. Now, in many cases, employers are responsible for covering the cost of reasonable accommodations under the ADA. But there could be times when they need to explore additional funding options if needed. External funding sources could include grants, state vocational rehabilitation or VR programs, nonprofit organizations, or disability-specific funding programs that may assist with costs. Also, employers may be eligible for federal tax credits or deductions, such as the Work Opportunity Tax Credit or the Disabled Access Credit, to offset accommodation expenses. Another point to consider is, does the electronic infrastructure support interoperability with the AT? The effectiveness of AT often depends on how well it integrates with your existing systems and tools. Ensure that the AT is compatible with the organization's hardware, software, networks, and security systems. Confirm that the IT department can support the installation, the maintenance, and the troubleshooting of the AT when necessary. Also, make sure that the AT complies with any cybersecurity or privacy policies that are relevant to the organization or the industry. And, this is something that I can speak to both on a professional and a personal level because I use assistive software on my computer at work. And I rely heavily on JAN's IT staff to help me know if this is something that I'm able to use that's within the parameters of all of our security policies and also for day-to-day troubleshooting. It's very important to have uh, access for the person with a disability to people whom they can request assistance from when things come up. Finally, is training available? Training is vital to ensure that the user can confidently and effectively operate the AT. The individual using the AT may need hands-on instruction that's tailored to their role and to their work environment. Supervisors, coworkers, and IT personnel might also need training to understand how to support the AT user and ensure a collaborative work environment. It's really important to check whether the vendor or the supplier can provide some refresher training, some user manuals, or some access to technical support. Now, sometimes a person will come in with some knowledge of how to use their customary assistive technology, but they might not have used it in a setting like yours. So, what do I mean by that? Well, perhaps a person has used software like Dragon Naturally Speaking in college and is pretty good at writing papers with it, but using it to do things like compose emails on a daily or even, you know, minute by minute basis might be something they are not as experienced in doing, or they might not know how it integrates with something that you're using, like an online program or a database. They might need some training specific to how to use it in your environment. So, by addressing all of these aspects of implementation and organization can help ensure that the assistive technology meets the employee's needs. Another great idea is to allow a short trial period to evaluate how the AT works in the actual work setting and to make adjustments as needed. So this could be part of the monitoring process. That's the final step, and we're going to discuss it more on the next slide. So just like with other accommodations, providing assistive technology as a job accommodation is not a one-time thing. It's ongoing. It's a collaborative process between the employer and the employee, monitoring the use, effectiveness, and relevance of the AT over time ensures that it continues to meet the evolving needs of both the employee and the workplace. Open communication, regular check-ins, and a willingness to adapt are essential for long-term success. So, as part of this continuous improvement approach, let's consider the following key questions and actions. Was the training effective? Did the employee receive sufficient training to use that AT confidently and independently? Are there any remaining gaps in knowledge or skill that need to be addressed? Has follow-up or refresher training been offered, especially if the AT has been updated? Is the AT being used properly and consistently? Is that employee using it as intended, or are there some barriers that are keeping them from using it to its full potential? If the usage is inconsistent, is it due to discomfort, lack of training, technical issues, workflow conflicts? Are supervisors and colleagues aware of how the AT supports the employee's work? Are they supportive? Also, is the AT being maintained and functioning as expected? Are there protocols in place to regularly inspect, to service, or to update the technology? Who's responsible for that maintenance? Has the AT shown signs of wear? Are there performance issues emerging or compatibility problems with the updated workplace systems? Should other accommodations be considered? Remember, AT is not always a sufficient standalone solution. There might be additional supports that could enhance the productivity of the person and their access to the work environment. Again, what were some of those examples? Modifying schedules, physically adjusting the workspace, maybe reallocating a non-essential task through job restructuring. And so is the current accommodation setup as a whole addressing all the aspects of the person's needs? Also, have their duties changed? Have their functional limitations changed? Those things can change over time. Are there new barriers to the task performance? Or has the AT become outdated or less effective? We're seeing this currently a lot with telephone related solutions because a lot of places are changing the way their employees access the telephone. So the AT that worked before might not work with the new system. Communication channels open and active. Remember, we want to encourage regular dialogue between the employee and their supervisor, HR, and IT so that if there are any challenges, they can be addressed in a proactive manner. You want to establish a clear process for the employee to request accommodations or adjustments or report any issues with the AT. You want a workplace culture where feedback is welcome and is acted upon respectfully and promptly. So monitoring the equipment, when we think of that, our first thought might be, oh, we got to make sure the equipment keeps working and is running. But it's more than that. It's all about creating an environment that supports employee success. So we're going to treat the AT accommodations almost as a living process. And employers get to demonstrate their commitment to accessibility, productivity, and long-term value and talent that employees with disabilities bring to their organizations by helping keep everything running. So now that we have an idea of assistive technology and an idea of the AT process, let's talk about some situations and solutions. We're going to talk about some examples that are drawn from real life and how they were implemented in the workplace. Okay, so here's a typical type of problem that comes across my desk quite frequently. A custodian was having difficulty reading instructions from his supervisor. Now, sometimes we don't know all of the details when a case comes to JAN. Sometimes the person calling us doesn't know the details either. But in this case, we knew that there was a custodian, they were having trouble reading. The supervisor was sending them text messages with instructions, and those instructions were not getting through to the person. So, a typical approach in this type of situation would be to provide instructions in a different way, or maybe help the employee learn to use an accessibility tool that would enable their phone to read the text messages aloud. So, either one of these could potentially work. But if they like the instantaneous nature of texting, maybe a good thing to do would be teach the person to use the accessibility tools in their phone so that they can hear that instead of reading it. That piece is actually pretty difficult. Sorry, that one is not too difficult. We can solve that pretty easily. But what often happens is once you fix one part of an accommodation, other issues emerge. And that's why it's so important to monitor the accommodation and make sure that everything is in place to support a person. So the employer developed some concerns about the employee's ability to correctly identify cleaning products. Um, so the thinking was kind of, well, if they're having trouble reading these text messages, we can fix that. But are they reading all these labels correctly? It's kind of important that they do, because if they mix up these cleaning products, that could be a big safety hazard. So what can we do about that? Well, one thing you can do is confer with JAN. That's what they did. A JAN consultant shared with them some information about a device with optical character recognition and some AI features that was able to read the labels aloud. And the AI feature also let the user ask questions about the content of the label. This is really nice because in the past, you kind of had to listen to a lot of information that maybe wasn't of general interest in order to get to the piece of information that you needed. It takes time and it makes it a frustrating experience to use the equipment. But with this new AI feature, it's possible to ask questions about the text and get a quicker, more targeted answer. In this case, the consultant also helped the employer connect with their state AT program so that they could borrow some items to try at the workplace before buying. Now, if you go on your state AT program's website, you're likely to be able to get into the equipment lending library and see what they have available. But even if you're not seeing exactly what you want, I would encourage you to reach out by phone or email because they might be able to help you find something similar. Here's a product spotlight. Now remember, JAN does not endorse or recommend products. We provide information about them. And we're spotlighting this product because it has some of the features that were discussed in the previous example. The OrCam company's been around for quite some time. They specialize in OCR, or optical character recognition. This device, the OrCam Read 5, can read both printed and handwritten text. It can summarize text. It can respond to questions about the text. It does some translation. And if you put it together with the right equipment, so pictured we have a stand and a tablet, it can also magnify. So if a person benefits from magnification, but they also need some of these other features, then this might be a device to try. Now, they have a lot of other things in their lineup, and there are some similar products as well. But today we're spotlighting this. Next, I want to show you a hearing example. Here's another issue that comes up a lot. People are having difficulty communicating in a meeting. Now, this can happen even if there are no disabilities involved. But in this case, there was a team of engineers. The team included some engineers who were hearing, some who were hard of hearing, and also some employees who were deaf. Some needed captioning, some needed ASL, some really didn't need anything except for their own personal assistive devices. Pictured, we have a pair of hearing aids. And also, everybody benefits from a group that has effective meeting etiquette. In this type of situation, a typical approach would be to provide cart services. That's, captioning, like what you can see today on the webcast, and also interpreting services on an as-needed basis. It can also be helpful to see if an employee who uses hearing aids would benefit from some type of an assistive listening device or a system that integrates with their hearing aid and helps them deal with background noise. And it's also helpful to encourage good habits for effective meetings, like appropriate turn taking. So this is also an example of combining approaches. But as often happens, there was a twist. This is why it's so important to keep lines of communication open, even after you've implemented an accommodation like ASL or cart services, because something could happen that changes everything. In this case, the team experienced communication difficulty when they had to make a change and more of them began working remotely and using remote meeting platforms. So if you have in-person or what we call community-based interpreters in the room with you and cart providers who are in the room with you, that's a very different experience from a situation where you're all in different places and some of you need different services from others. Let's see what happened. Again, open communication is key. Because of good open communication practices, the engineers were able to share with those supporting them that they were having some issues. They tried automated captioning, but it wasn't always accurate. It didn't do great with the engineering jargon that they needed to use. It was okay as an on-demand uh, solution or as a backup option, but the engineers were really accustomed to using remote, to using CART. So they kind of trusted remote CART and video remote interpreting over some of the automated options. Now, they did like chat functions in online meeting platforms because they could use that to like interject, share some links, get some clarification, and it didn't interrupt the flow of the meeting. So the increased use of chat was really helpful for everyone, including those with other impairments or even those with no impairments. Employees liked having more volume control, but some of them found dialing into a meeting was more effective for them than using um, the digital audio that came through the automatic meeting platform. So let's move on. I want to show you a vision example next. So a human resources manager returned to work after a traumatic brain injury. Due to this injury, he developed a visual processing disorder that caused the employee to take a little bit longer reading emails, which caused delays in the HR department operations. So part of the job required using computer resources um, that screen reading software couldn't read effectively. Let's look at some options. The JAN consultant presented options for AT that didn't rely on the employee's vision in order to access information. So, for example, a screen reader can help by reading the email to an employee, if as long as they can process auditory input. So, some options could include screen reading software, OCR technology, or even sighted assistance. So it really depends on what the person is actually doing and what would benefit from them. A lot of people think that if you have any usable vision at all, there's no reason to consider screen reading. But that's not always the case. If it can speed the person up and make them more effective and more comfortable with the information they're handling, why not consider it? So, whenever you're dealing with a situation where um, screen reading software can't effectively read, some things you can do include designating someone to assist as a qualified reader. You can get some more information about that on our website or by calling us. Seeking assistance from state vocational rehabilitation or from a scripting vendor to see if there's something that you could do to fix your system so that the screen reader works better with it, or provide a portable option. So even after doing some implementation, the employer did still have some concerns about the employee's ability to respond to emails in a timely manner. Um, Sometimes that does happen. They receive a lot of emails and they were having some difficulty typing their responses quickly enough. So whenever you have those productivity issues, what you can do is go back to the drawing board and try to come up with some other solutions. So again, the JAN consultant provided information on other accommodation solutions to be used in addition to the screen reader software. Some things you can do in a situation like this, I'm not sure what happened in this exact case, but you could add on some speech recognition software so that the person is typing with their voice. Some people find that to be a little quicker and a little smoother. Or provide a typist or an assistant to type what the employee dictates. Now, you might do the second piece, providing a typist or an assistant on a short-term basis while you're looking for a good speech recognition option and getting the person trained up on it. So this could be a good example of providing a temporary solution that then leads to a more permanent one down the road. Let's see the next slide. I want to spotlight Access Hound. This is a place that provides tools and services to help with audio description. Why do I mention it? When you're using screen readers, you want to make sure that your images and videos are described properly. And guide dogs are a tool provided by Access Hound that can assist with that. They provide automated audio description and they also have an API. Moving on.
Hey, Teresa, I want just for to be mindful of our time today, can we skip through the situation and solutions? They can download the PowerPoint, but can we jump to the
Yeah,
A to Z list on the JAN website
hop
so they
ahead.
can see for themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the A to Z of disabilities and accommodations. You can click on by disability, by limitation, by work-related function, or by topic. And you can find out more information about a variety of things that we've discussed today. I think on the next slide, there are some links that are germane to today's discussion. Links to blindness, low vision, deafness, hearing impairment, and assistive technology. We also have a situations and solutions finder. If you've enjoyed today's situations and solutions, you can find more on our website with the situations and solutions finder. You can filter your results to find exactly the type of situation and solution that you're looking for. And here are some examples. We also have MyJan, a personalized Ask Jan experience where you can save links that you enjoy and that you want to refer to later.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, Teresa. Um, as we can acknowledge, you have a vast wealth of knowledge on assistive technology. So I encourage all of our attendees to reach out directly. The JAN service, if you have vision and hearing questions, Teresa's your girl. So don't hesitate to live chat at askjan.org. You can give us a call at 800-526-7234, or you can email us at jan@askjan.org. Be sure to follow Jan on social media platforms for updates and resources. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. You can find us on X @Jan. And then also, this webcast and many other past webcasts are available on our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us today for this Jan webcast. This concludes our training.